Okay, so you should know these um, the basic specializations of each hemisphere. Here, I wanted to show you this is the male and female brain. We didn't talk about that much, but I think I should bring it up. Is in every single area of the brain, there are slight differences between male and female brains. And the way that I could get you to understand this is if we look at the male and female body, I always want to remind you to liken the brain to the body. The brain is just an organ of the body. So anything that we can say about the body is what we could say about the brain. So if you look at male and female bodies, wouldn't you agree with me that in every area of the male and female body, there are slight differences? There may not be major differences, but there are slight differences, like men tend to have more hair in more places, and men tend to have more muscle mass, and men tend to have longer bones, and men may have different skin consistency. And then, of course, we have some big major differences, whereas men have a penis and women have the vagina area and women have bigger breasts and so on and so forth. But in general, male and female bodies are more similar than dissimilar. I think you would agree with that. Our bodies are very similar, but there are small differences between us, but these small differences between us seem to have a pretty big impact. And what they found about the brain is they found in virtually every area of the brain there are small differences between males and females. So like these brains up here, this is I believe it's an fMRI. Don't quote me on that, but I believe it's an fMRI. I can't remember exactly because it could be a Meg. But here, look, the males and females are asked to do the same exact cognitive task, the same exact thinking task. And so look, here we go. The men are just using one side to do the same exact thing, and then we have activity over the female. Okay, here, men on one side, women on both sides. Men on one side, very small area. Oh, women both sides. Okay, here men, women both, and then slightly different areas here. So what I wanted to show you is an area where we find some differences, some major differences between males and females is this topic of lecture, the divided brain and this corpus callosum. So women tend to have more language areas in the brain. They tend to have language here and more language here. So any guy will say, yeah, that's why she's always bringing up the same thing again and again and again. And women talk so much. It's like this and that. And that's what we find is we do find some differences in males and females, that it seems like women, when they are stressed out or when they are experiencing negative emotions, they seem to do much better. They really want to talk about their feelings. Whereas men, when they're having these negative emotions, they are not as likely to have language over here. So men tend to, when he has negative emotions, there's a tendency for men to kind of want to isolate, to kind of just want to watch TV and distract himself, or imagine, think about how he should solve the problem. Whereas since women have language over here, we seem to want to talk about problems. I'm stereotyping right now, but I know for myself, when I have a problem, it's like I really need to talk about it. It makes me feel so much better, and I'll be that stereotypical woman where I'll have a problem and I'll call up my friend and I'll talk to her for about hours, and then I'll like an hour later I'll call up another friend and talk to them about it, and then I'll go to another friend and I'll talk to them about it, and another friend and talk to them about it. So I definitely see this for me. I'm not saying all women are like that, but women, since we have more language areas, women tend to use language a little differently than men. Also, I think a lot of you know that little girl babies usually have language, start their language a little earlier than boys, and boys are more likely to have language disorders. So there's one thing. Women seem to be better at facial recognition tasks and emotion. So women seem to be able to identify the emotional faces, the emotional expressions on faces much better than men. Men will a lot of times say women don't use logic when they're talking. Maybe one reason is because when she's having these negative emotions, she has the language over here, and so she tends to not just use the language and logic from over here. But so you see that there's differences. Women tend to use both sides of their brain simultaneously a little bit more, and men tend to be on one side or the other. They tend to be over here or not over here. So what we say about men and women is we say that they tend to be less lateralized. Another difference that we see between men and women is this corpus callosum, which is discussed by your book. I used the definition straight from your textbook, is the network of fibers connecting the two hemispheres of the brain and carrying messages between them. So you've got this corpus callosum here, and what we find is in women it tends to be 10% thicker. And so women have more connections between the two hemispheres than men do. So once again, men tend to use one side or the other, and women tend to use both sides, and they tend to have more connections between the two hemispheres. Now, I'm not saying either one is better. That's like saying, is the male body better than the female body? Well, it depends. The male body is stronger than the female body, but then the female body can have babies, so which is better? You could never say which is better, because they're for two different things. So the male and female brain, you can't say who's better. They may be specialized for a little bit of different things. And I'm not saying it's just like, if you look at all men, and if you look at their body types, you have some men that have the very masculine body, and then you have some men that have more of an androgynous body. That's, maybe they have more fat in their breast, and more fat on their body, and more different skin texture, so on and so forth. So there are some men that have a body that's closer to a female's, and there are some men that are very masculine, and there are some women that have a very stereotypically female body where she has fat in these places and her hips go in, but then there are some women that are very muscular, kind of like a man, and she doesn't have much fat here in her, she doesn't have breast, and her hips don't go in. So saying that all men are this way or all women are this way is incorrect, just like saying all male bodies are like this and all female bodies are like this. We see tendencies, but they're not all.